I'm so nervous. If I'm not funny, I won't be able to live with myself.
Herbert, does this film have socially redeeming value?
Oh, I certainly hope so, Sam. Sorry about that. Oh, hi, Biggie.
Somebody fucking
Roll now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your Star Wars Weekend host, a man with the freakish vocal range and 3 first names, James Arnold Taylor.
It's amazing to look at those pieces, isn't it? To see that, to see all those characters, it's exciting. I've got to tell you, I have been the host of Star Wars Weekends for 5 years in a row here. I'm so fortunate to be able to be here with all of you. But when I see stuff like that, I just get like, oh man, isn't this exciting? Isn't this wonderful to have this opportunity that we have today? Welcome to a very special conversation that we have exclusive to Star Wars Weekends 2015. This is a first. This is so exciting. How many folks were here the first day? Anybody see the first conversation we had? How about the second day? So you're all brand new to it. Great, so we can repeat everything we did. This is going to be a fantastic time, and I am going to stop talking, have you look at the screen, so we can bring out our very special guest. Check this out.
be scared.
Teaching Bernice here how to play checkers. Your move, Bernice. Bernice?
Yes, now to our story.
Big time showbiz. Waka.
Your card line.
Take the last when you can get 'em.
Hi there, Mr. Oz. Are you by chance in relation to Frank Oz?
No. Well.
You trying to make a movie, you got a film?
Action.
He's never gone! Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Very sweet.
Cut. And cut. Check it.
I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a Jedi Master.
You seek Yoda. Why wish you become Jedi? Use the Force. Get me up a size, do you? With 900 years old, you reach look as good you or not. Do or do not. There is no try. You must feel the Force around you.
It's very generous of you to be here with us for 3 days at Star Wars Weekends. No, I had to steal that one little shot there.
That's okay.
That's pretty good.
Did I ruin the shot?
No, yeah, you were kind of in it. I was trying to get a shot of them, but there you were. It's all right. Frank Oz photobombed y'all, so there you go. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. This is not your first time at Disney World, but it is your first time at Star Wars Weekends.
Yeah, first time here. Thank you. And it's been, it's been magnificent. I mean,
it's just wonderful. The reaction, you guys are just so warm and welcoming. It's fantastic.
It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great.
And we have had the opportunity to sit down and chat every day at 5:15, Friday, Saturday, and now Sunday. And you were saying that we pretty much run out of questions.
There's nothing else I have to say.
Well, I mean, I have a few. Okay, all right, I'll give it a shot. Yesterday, for those of you that weren't here, we did chat about characters. So many different characters, because you worked on this little show, Sesame Street and the Muppets, these shows. That I don't know, kind of shaped and formed my life and probably most people's in this room. Taught me about comedy and timing and music and variety. And was that the intent with the Muppet Show, to show like old vaudeville, to show new, old, mixed together? I mean, what was the intent with that show?
Yeah, it was, again, I said this the other two times, I've got to say it for you guys, that I'm here getting all the credit, but there are people, number one, Jim Henson, and then there's Jerry Gould, Don Saline, Dave Goles, Jerry Nelson has passed away. All these great people I could not be here without, so they should be on the stage with me. I'm not being modest, I'm just saying what's true. But as far as the Muppet Show goes, I guess the intent was just to entertain. I mean, Jim, we wanted to do that show for years. Jim wanted to, and so I remember, just 10 years before the show even came about, we would go around, the four of us, with these big black boxes of puppets. We'd go across town to ABC and audition. They didn't want us. We went off to NBC. They didn't want us. Went to an ad agency. They weren't interested. But they said, "Oh well, Bill's got to see this." So we had to come back and do it for Bill. And nobody really had any idea how to use puppets on television. They thought only for kids.
And Saturday Night Live was actually one of the first places we saw the Muppets. Is that true?
No, not really.
Is this how it's going to be? No, but that was, they were in the first season and people don't really know about that much.
Yeah, we were in the first season, but we were doing many, many more things prior to that.
Certainly. Commercial work and
Certainly,
Sesame
you have no idea.
I have. Day 3. It'll be great. It'll be fun.
No, Saturday Night Live, we were on the very first year of Saturday Night Live, and nobody remembers. What actually happened was that Bernie Brillstein, who has since passed away, was the agent for Jim Henson, and also for John Belushi, Danny Aykroyd, Gilda Radner, etc., and Lorne Michaels. And at that time, all those people were totally unknown. And oddly enough, we were the only people who were known because we were on Sesame Street and we had done many, many variety shows. So we came on board, and as much as we really had a great time there, we didn't fit. Our humor, the Muppets' humor, is more explosive, and their humor is Saturday Night humor of Chevy and John and Danny, etc., are more casual, Second City kind of humor, and it just didn't mesh. And as much as we were friendly with John and Danny and everybody, it was difficult because we were taking time away from them. Each one of them wanted to be on camera. So eventually, it didn't work. But the end of that show, the end of that year, that's when we got the 24 half-hour shows guaranteed in London, and we did the show, The Muppet Show in London then.
That's fantastic. Do you get the sense that Jim Henson felt satisfied with The Muppet Show and that this was a really fun, pleasing thing for him to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was, when I joined Jim, he had already been successful locally. He was in Washington, D.C.
I think they were applauding success. I don't know if they were applauding success.
Was that success or D.C.?
I think maybe success. D.C., okay.
And he was on a local television for 8 years with his wife Jane and other people helping him. And then he decided to move to New York. He got an Emmy for that. And when he came to New York, that's when he had Don Saline, who made the puppets. He hired Jerry Jewell, one of my best friends, who became a part entertainer, part puppeteer, and part writer. And then after about a year he was there, he had met me when I was 17, and he asked me to come to New York when I was 19 years old to try it part-time. And when I arrived there, my parents said I could do it, but I had to continue school. And I continued in Oakland City College for about 6 months, but it just got too exciting, and I let it go. And what I did is instead I learned all about the business from Jim, and we did hundreds of commercials first with the Muppets. Not the Muppets you know. They didn't exist then, but a couple Muppets called Wilkins and Wonkins. And, coffee, they sold coffee, we sold luncheon meats, sold, other characters sold toilet paper, sold dog food, sold gasoline, and that's how the Muppets really survived. And that was just the four of us in 2 rooms in 1964, 65, until Sesame Street came out in about 66. And then we stopped the commercials and we did Sesame Street.
I think we know Sesame Street, a few of us, maybe.
And then going full circle, when we were on Sesame Street, people started to know it, and then we got into Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
So that's kind of the background.
Thank you for correcting my error.
That's okay. Some people do their homework.
And
I was, there's something in my brain that said, don't say it, Frank. I had to.
This has been actually, this has been one of the coolest parts about getting to know you over these last couple of days, is that you love that. If we can kind of kick that back and forth, that's fun, right?
Well, it's the same kind of fun I've always had with Jim Henson, with Bert and Ernie.
Okay.
And Grover and Kermit, and Piggy and Kermit.
Yeah.
There's nothing more fun than playing catch with an actor.
Yeah.
Because it's, if you have somebody who really knows what they're doing, like James, you can just kind of play, and you can trust the other guy's timing, you can trust that there's going to be either something funny, or he's going to let it go and let me be funny. We get that feeling, I can sense right away. So that's the joy of it, is working with somebody who's on the same rhythm as you are. It's a terrific feeling. By the way, have you seen his show? I thought it was terrific. It was fantastic.
Oh.
Is that what I was supposed
You're
to say?
so embarrassing. you missed the one part, but that's okay.
No, I'm serious. That was volunteer. It's a terrific show. Okay.
You have no idea what it's like for Mr. Frank Oz to say that about Jim. And it's very scary to do voices that he does in front of him in my show. And he's sitting in the front row, and you're
Let
like,
me tell you a story about that. When I was in my 20s, I wanted to be an actor, but I was doing Sesame Street. I was doing Cookie Monster, Grover.
Were you? You did those?
Yeah, I did.
That was you?
And so, but I also wanted to be an actor. I didn't really want to. I gave it a try for 6 months, and I went out for auditions, and one was a voice audition, and it was for a particular new cereal brand. And I got there with, a lot of other people, and they showed me the box of cereal, and the box of cereal was a picture of a monster that looked just like Cookie Monster.
Oh.
And I said, and they didn't know who I was. And I said, that just looks like Cookie Monster. They say, yeah, isn't that great? They were proud of it. And so I auditioned, but I called my lawyer. We had to stop it. The funny thing is, they auditioned and I didn't get the part. I wasn't good enough to be Cookie Monster.
Really? You just aren't Cookie Monster material, my friend. I'm sorry. Hey, so then you've got something here at Disney World called Muppet Vision 3D. Talking about the legendary Jim Henson, this was one of the last projects that he worked on. Do you have any memories of working on that?
Oh yeah. Jim was always breaking boundaries. The thing with Jim was if there was something impossible, he wanted to do it. And we would always say, oh boy, Jim's got all these projects and he wants to do this thing, or whatever it is, and he's really gone too far this time. He can't handle it. And every time he did it. He just he's amazing, broke all the boundaries. This particular one was an early version of 3D. And I don't, if you see it, have you seen the movie at all? If you see it again, you might notice that the first shot, a wide shot, goes on for a very long time. We don't cut. We continue the wide shot for a long, long time, and there are very few cuts in it. And that's because, what, 25, 30 years ago? Yeah. They didn't have 3D as sophisticated as now, where you could cut, because the cut was too jarring at that point for the eye. So we had no choice but to have a longer, what they call a master shot. So if you notice that, that's the reason for it. The technology wasn't there. But Jim, you know, Jim loved trying new things, loved experimenting, and this was kind of an experiment at that time. Yeah. He passed away towards the end of that, after we shot it, and I finished the Waldo part where he's the creature, you know. So I finished that for him. But I remember Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg at Disney, when I was doing it, they said, okay, how much do you want to be paid? And I said, I don't want any money for this. I said, what? I said, I don't want any money. I'm doing it for Jim. I said, well, you got to pay something. How about $50,000? I said, no, I just don't want the money. I'm sorry. Well, they couldn't quite understand that, you know? And they said, what do you want? I said, you know, I need socks. I need some socks. And so I finished it a month later. And then when I showed them the first cut, they came with a whole basket of socks. Mickey Mouse socks.
Oh, there we go. Okay, that's pretty good. Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate Muppet Vision 3D here, don't we? It's so fun. And walking through there, and so many of these fantastic characters. And again, you broke down the characters yesterday for us. We went through so many various Muppets, and it was really fantastic. But I really do want to focus on this one character that I think we all know and love very much, and why we're here, and that is, of course, Yoda. When did you first hear about Yoda? Was it right when you get the script, or did they, you know, how did all that come about?
Well, for those of you who were here when I said it before, I have to say it again because it's the truth. I can't make it up as just to please the new guys.
Well, it'd be fun. It'd be fun if you did.
No, what happened was I was shooting the Muppet movie with Jim and all the guys in Los Angeles, and they went to Jim first, and he realized he was running a company and he couldn't do it, and he also knew that it just wasn't his thing. He could do things that nobody else in the world could do. He was brilliant. But there's a few things he knew that I could do also a little bit better, which is more, you know, acting background. So he suggested me. And then they brought the designs to the trailer, my trailer, and there were designs that don't look like Yoda now. They looked like a wizened character, but it's all different kinds of wizened characters. But I saw one and I thought, you know, sometimes it takes me a long time to get a character. Like Bert took me like a year.
Really?
And others kind of accumulate slowly and eventually get there. But Yoda somehow, I know this character.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know, but I get it. And so when I said, yeah, oh, great. And then I think, essentially, I hadn't seen the script then. You were talking about script.
Well, I was just wondering, yeah, when you first heard about it. So you heard about it first. It wasn't like, here's the script, here's the character. That's how you discovered it.
No, I got the script. Actually, George gave me only my portion of the script. And
he has a tendency to do that.
Yeah, but I had to say, George, I can't do that. If Yoda is supposed to be wise, and maybe not knowing what's going on, but sensing it through the Force, I got to know what's going on, the whole thing.
That's
right. So he was good enough to understand that.
Sure.
And so I read the whole script, and that's, you know, that Larry Kasdan wrote with George, and that was like 25 years ago, was it? Sure. Something like that. I don't know. Yeah. And essentially, I rehearsed for about 2 weeks, and shot for a week and a half, 2 weeks. I forgot.
Really, it was just, and then it was really primarily just you and Mark Hamill with the crew.
Me and Mark Hamill and Dagobah with the crew, yeah.
Yeah, and R2-D2.
And Kirsch, Irvin Kershner, and R2-D2, and Kirsch who directed.
And then you come back and you do Jedi and Return of the Jedi, and Yoda, a very dramatic scene. I remember seeing Return of the Jedi at a young age, and Yoda passes away. Spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen it. That was an incredibly dramatic scene for all of us. How do you?
For me too.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how was that? You know, because were you thinking I'm saying goodbye to this character for good now?
I wasn't really thinking about that. When I do my work, I just focus on the moment.
Okay.
So I can't think of future. My job and my desire is to focus just on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't want a terrible, you know, a dramatic death scene. I tend to work against things.
Yeah.
So that's why his head was turned away from Mark, so it wouldn't be dramatic. You know, so you wouldn't have a last gasping thing. I wanted it more delicate and soft. But it was dramatic for me too. Yeah.
And then he comes back years later in the prequels, as we call them, episodes 1, 2, and 3, Phantom Menace, and he is a puppet again.
He's a puppet with Sam. Was it Sam?
With Sam Jackson
Yeah.
and Ewan McGregor. And
it was Sam, yeah, and Ewan. Yeah, the two different. Weren't they two different ones?
No, those would all. He was a puppet again, only in the first one, and then he was replaced CG thereafter. But I love how I'm just telling you about this. This feels awkward.
It's funny. I get totally confused about episode 1, 2, whatever. That's why I do have to ask.
Yeah. No. So was it a very different experience working with all these new people and and a younger Yoda? He's younger. Was there any change?
I had to do something a little bit with Yoda's voice and mouth and such to make it seem younger, a little bit younger.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what I ask whenever I'm doing Yoda. I say, how old is he compared to Empire? Because I do have to adjust a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
But
when you're 900 years old, and then there's what we're talking like a 18-year gap or whatever. It's not
much notice.
Yeah. But was it still fun? Was it, you know, still great to return to this character?
I can't say it's fun out of the sense of aren't I having a good time. The fun for me comes from the challenge.
Okay.
That's the fun for me, is this extraordinary challenge and getting to the point where George feels he's got it.
Yeah.
Or Kirsch, whoever's directing, and that's the great part for me. And then the editor puts it together. So the fun is the challenge, and meeting the challenge and hopefully going beyond it.
Absolutely. Do you mind if we take another question? We did this yesterday. Some questions from the audience.
Sure, no problem.
Excellent. So some of you got to fill out some questions here, and we went through, and I have one here from Eric from Gainesville, and it really fits into where we're at with Yoda right now. Eric from Gainesville, Florida, where are you, Eric? Eric, anywhere? Right there, right up there, raising his hand right here in the middle there. Stand up for a second, Eric. Look at that. You're about to get a question answered from Mr. Frank.
This better be good, because we know where you're sitting.
That's right. And he asked, what is your favorite Yoda affirmation or piece of advice that he gave? Is there a particular thing that really resonated with you when he was teaching Luke?
Well, I think the thing that resonates with me, whether one is religious or not, is when he says the Force is all around you. Now you can have that as God, you can have the Force, you can have as nature, whatever you want to interpret it as. But I think that's probably my favorite, because I think there is something there, you know, whatever we choose to do. So that, to me, that has a sense of power, that we're not completely alone.
And was that something you would draw from with this character, thinking that he's just really in touch with a lot of things?
Yeah, what I love about Grover? Grover's
my favorite, but come on. I think I used the Jedi mind trick on you right there. I just wanted to get back to Grover.
Okay, so I get confused sometimes with the characters. I apologize.
You've only done a couple, so no.
I forgot what was done.
Well, with Yoda, he's got this just very kind of calm sense about him. But we really did see a different side of him when he became this CG character that then is fighting with Dooku and the Emperor with Ian McDiarmid, which of course you had directed, Ian.
Ian, who I don't know if you saw Dirty Rotten Scoundrels or anything. Ian, I cast as the butler to Michael Caine. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but Ian was a wonderful actor, and I underused him completely. But he was a gem to work with him. And how funny it was that now we're working.
And it makes you wonder if that was like that battle between them. That was him getting back at But so what you? Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I think that the part of Yoda that I think is powerful and I think needed is there's a gravitas. Because all these guys are shooting and saving each other and trying to threaten each other. And there's a gravitas, a plumb line that goes deep. And Yoda has to be centered. He has to be, because none of the other guys are truly centered. And I think there's a need for people to touch base to the center of what the Force is. And he, at the moment, is the last person, the only person who you can really touch base with. And so, to me, that's probably the most important thing for Yoda. Also, I like his humor, too. I think that we haven't seen enough of his humor. So I like a little bit of both. But the gravitas is the most important thing to me.
There's something that you've mentioned the last couple of days, and I think it really bears worth repeating, because all of us here on crew and stuff, we're all Star Wars nerds. We love all of this. And you said something that I'd never heard before about Yoda's language and the Jedis of past. Do you know where I'm going with that?
Yeah. You know, people make jokes about Yoda's syntax. And George never told me but this is what I have come to believe, and I have a backstory for Yoda, and this is part of the backstory, that I think he talks that way for a reason. And it's a very serious reason. Because I believe hundreds and hundreds of years ago, this is the way Jedi actually spoke. They were quite formal and respectful to each other, and this is how they spoke. And so now he's grown so old that the younger people around him have no idea how they really spoke. So these guys talk like surfer dudes around him. And he feels the responsibility, not unlike the Navajo or Cherokee or any Native American elders feel the responsibility to keep their language alive and their culture. Yoda feels that responsibility too, because that's how the Jedi formally spoke. And that's the reason he speaks that way to me.
Doesn't that blow your mind? Isn't that like, oh yeah? And that's like one of those, oh, we're going to sit and like talk for hours on that, man. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because you do this with each one of your characters. You develop your own backstory, yes?
You don't do anything for no reason. There's always a reason why your character does something, or I do something, whenever somebody says, why'd you do that? I don't know. It's not true. There's a reason you do everything. And so when I have a character who I need to believe in and love, because if I don't believe and love the character, you won't believe and love the character, then I have to know why things are happening with him, at least have an idea. So that's important to me with all characters.
And then, is that important to you, as I segue, watch this master segue, as a director, with your actors, that they know that? Do you feel that you get a sense of that? Do you get to kind of meet with them beforehand? How do you work a picture? When you come in and you are about to start a picture, do you come in and say, hey, here we all are, let's read through it, let's talk
Well, I always want 2 weeks of rehearsal beforehand.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily always get it, because what happens, at least in a major motion picture like the $40, $50 million movies, or 60, whatever, usually when you have 2 weeks of rehearsal and you have major stars, they're taken away for costume fittings, they're taken away for makeup tests, for hair tests. So the 2 weeks aren't a full 2 weeks, but I ask for it because I really, if there's a relationship in a movie, like a married relationship, a man and a wife, for instance, or even buddies, whatever, sure. I hate the idea of them coming on the screen and us not believing their buddies are married.
Yeah.
And there's little subtle, delicate things that you do in a marriage. You know, you just kind of wipe the hair off.
Yeah.
And I don't want that, or just a little extra word here or there between a line. That's stuff that's very personal after you've been married for a few years or been a buddy for a few years. And that's the stuff I need to get on the screen, or else you're not going to believe it. So that's number one.
Okay. Yeah.
And then essentially I work with the actors any way they want to as I rehearse. Some actors will say, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. Others actors will say, can we go through the script page by page? And my job is to support the actor, so whatever he wants or she wants to do, I'm happy to do it.
Talking about that relationship, though, that's one of my favorites, and it's truly one of my favorite, Death and Funeral, that you did back in '07. And yes, please applaud, because it's a fantastic movie. And if you haven't seen it, you better see it, because it's fantastic. It is all about those relationships, and I don't know how you couldn't have had that without that.
Yeah, well, I did a movie before for like $100 million. It was Stepford Wives, which to my mind did not work. In part because it was not the movie I had intended. But nevertheless, that's my responsibility, nobody else's. So I wanted to go back to what for me, is a low-budget movie, which is $10 million. That for somebody else it's not, but for me it has been. So it was really important to be able to get back to the heart of actors working with each other in relationships, and I love that. So that was the reason I did Death.
Okay, and then Bowfinger, which is, as somebody that's in show business, but what's it like directing two legendary comedians like Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin? How do you go about something like that?
Well, with those guys, the worst thing in a comedy is to try to be funny.
Yeah.
And what I mean is, nobody wants to see you try.
Yeah.
They just want to be funny. And with Steve and Eddie, they don't have to try, they are funny. So that was a tremendous step forward. What I do with dramas and comedies as a director are different. When I'm in a drama, like I've had with Brando and De Niro and Norton or whatever, I'll observe. I'll observe more on like decisions on such. I'll go in occasionally and say a few things. But essentially, they know what they're doing. They don't need my help. And I'll shoot it in such a way that I believe I have it, okay? But I won't get in and mix it up as much. They know what they're doing. With comedies, I have to. I have to get up in my chair and I gotta try stuff. Because comedies are much more dangerous than dramas. And the reason to me comedies are more dangerous is because every time something's not funny, it's that less of a comedy. And so every time a joke doesn't work, that means your comedy is going to work that much less. And so I've got to go in there and try things all the time. And ask him to try a joke this way and try to do this. With Steve, I'd say, hey, listen, can you take it down 10%? And he knows what I mean. You take it up 20%, he knows what I mean. I can do it different ways because I really don't know at the end of the day what's going to work. It's in editing and previews that I'll try these things. I believe I know, but the truth is I don't know. When no one I believe the best thing in a comedy is not to know how to do comedy. Because that means you can discover. If you know how to do, somebody says, hey, I know comedy, I'd run them for the hills. Because you shouldn't know comedy. Comedy is something you discover. And comedy is something that should be unpredictable.
Yeah, well, speaking of comedy, speaking of unpredictable.
For me, that's just me.
Well, it makes sense. Go with it, I think it's good. Little Shop of Horrors. There was all these cheers when we were watching before you came out, and I could tell there was an energy about that. There is something there. It is a strange combination. Would you call that a black comedy? It's kind of, I mean, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I mean, I had done, because of Jim Henson, he asked me to co-direct Dark Crystal. It should now be like a $200 million movie. And I did not co-direct. I helped him direct his movie, okay? He had the vision. I helped him direct his movie. But then he asked me to direct The Muppets Take Manhattan. And so I rewrote that and did that. So David Geffen saw that and asked me. And I remember saying no first. I said, no, I can't do that, because I didn't understand it. It was like a plant, weighed a ton, 14 songs, special effects, guest stars. I couldn't get my head around it, so I said no first.
Really?
Yeah.
And then how long before you came back?
Well, then I did it, and he was shocked. He says, nobody says no to me. But I wasn't trying to be, obstreperous. I just didn't know how to do it. And then I was doing a job in Toronto, some commercial or something, 4 weeks later. And then somehow I got the key. And the key was that those 4 girls on stage came in from stage right or stage left and exited stage right and stage left. And I realized it's film, it's 360 degrees, so I can have those girls bop anywhere. And as soon as I got that, that was the key to open it up for me. Let me tell you, I don't know if you ever heard of Howard Ashman. Howard gave me the best advice for Little Shop of Horrors. Now, Little Shop of Horrors is why I'm talking about.
Well, and for those that don't know who Howard Ashman is.
Howard Ashman wrote Little Shop of Horrors. He also did the lyrics for Beauty and the Beast. He also did the lyrics for Mermaid. I mean, he's brilliant, okay? But when I finally said yes, then I started really getting into it and doing some nonsense director-actor stuff to myself, like saying, well, what's the motivation for Seymour to do this and everything? So I asked Howard to lunch, actually, at the Plaza Hotel. And this is the best advice he ever gave. I sat there with Howard and I said, Howard, ask me questions. I said, when Seymour does this, what does he really want? What's the motivation? And then I said, when Owen does this, Ravella does this, what's the motivation? And he says, Frank, this is supposed to be stupid. It's the best advice I ever, and I said, oh, I get it. It was great.
Well, do you mind taking another question from the audience?
Of course not.
It would really be awful if you said yes.
Yes, yeah, I do mind.
Comfortable.
No, I'm having a ball.
Okay, here's the thing. This really comes back to when we were talking about two other characters. Jeremy from Denton, Texas. Jeremy, where are you? Are you out there? Jeremy, raise your hand. Stand up if you're there. There you are. He had to check if that was really him. Jeremy from Denton, Texas asks, Yoda versus Super Grover, who would win?
Well, if you're talking about a fight,
Yeah.
Yoda wouldn't fight, and Super Grover wouldn't know how to fight.
I think that pretty much sums it up. There it is. Yeah, excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just, on a personal note, have to tell you again, as the host of Star Wars Weekends, as a voice actor, as a performer, I have met so many people and I've had the honor of interviewing so many folks. You, sir, changed my life before I ever knew you, and you have changed it for the better all the more now with your grace and your friendship and your kindness and your incredible, talented, lovely wife and your amazing, talented friends that have come here. You brought a wonderful, wonderful happiness to the last few days of Star Wars Weekends 2015. From the bottom of my heart, say thank you than to say, may the force be with you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Frank Oz.